Next section, Israel. Get your MeWe GIFs ready. Humanitarian organisations such as Amnesty International and Oxfam are to be declared anti-Semitic by the Trump administration in the coming days, according to US reports. I guess AIPAC dropped some campaign donations in his pocket after he returned from his 3-day I Am the New Jesus acting role then. And the news site Politico detailed on Wednesday how organisations such as Human Rights Watch may also be caught up in the declaration, which is being pushed by the US Secretary of Deep State, Mike Pompeo, just days before the US election. All three have criticised Israeli action in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, much to the chagrin of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Is it me, or is it just me, or do Israel and top-level Israeli officials all sound like whiny bitches? Please, Mr. Trump, those people said nasty things about us. Now bomb them or ban them. This is kindergarten level speak. And now Pompeo is targeting these people to win favour with pro-Israel groups in America to win the election. And that statement right there is why this country is in a total mess. What has Israel got to do with an American election? Do people ask these questions? You know, all the crap we've had for the last 4 years about foreign collusion in elections, and it happens every election on our own soil by a foreign and fake country not content with harvesting $10 billion a year from American taxpayers, but want to decide our elections for us as well, with politicians not favourable to the people, but the fake country known as Israel. That is direct collusion in your face. And we have to wake up to the reality of this. Now, the report has been traced to a congressional aide, and if true, would trigger a string of lawsuits from the organisations in question to demonstrate in court that they criticise other perceived human rights violators as well. But you can't criticise the whiny bitches. That's what they're saying. And such a declaration, if made, would withdraw all US cooperation and support to the groups, including financially, and urge other states to do the same. Now, lawyers in Pompeo's own deep state department are believed to have warned him against such an action, saying the organisation's criticism of Israel is constitutionally protected free speech. Oops. But sources said Pompeo is nevertheless pushing on. Now, the initiative is believed to involve Elan Carr, who is born in and born to, yet again, and is the US Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, who is planning to cite the NGOs for alleged or perceived support of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, and their input into a UN database of businesses operating in West Bank settlements. So it's okay that Iran and many other countries, Venezuela, have sanctions imposed on them. But if someone complains about Israel and says to boycott them, that these people get banned and cut off from funding. Human rights is human rights. Doesn't matter which country you're in. So people who legitimately are claiming horror about a foreign invader taking over other people's land and country are now deemed anti-Semitic. Seriously. But I wonder, does the US State Department have a special envoy on the white supremacist and white privilege racism against the white people? No? I wonder why. This sub-grey race knows no bounds, it seems. God's chosen people might ask. The question is, which God? And like father, like son-in-law. White House advisor, all-round snake, Judeo-fascist and Trump son-in-law Jared Kushner came under heavy criticism this week after he said that black Americans have to want to help themselves in order for the president's policies to help them. He also said that many people in the anti-police brutality and discrimination protests that followed the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis were just virtue signaling, which is a term for empty gestures of outrage or anguish on social media. They go on Instagram and cry, he said, or they would, put a slogan on their jersey or write something on a basketball court, dismissing the expressions of outrage and solidarity that many people after the video surfaced of Floyd being pinned with a police officer's knee on his neck, whether real or not. And quite frankly, that was doing more to polarize the country than it was to bring the people forward. You solve problems with solutions, Kushner said. Now, Kushner's implication that black Americans lack a drive to succeed and to address the problems facing their community drew criticism that he's blind to his own privilege and that his own success is attributable more to his family's wealth than his own efforts, which is correct. Born on third base, and he thinks he hit a triple. Few in US history has given as much wealth or power without having to earn a thing as Jared Kushner, was the tweet from Don Beyer of Democrat Virginia. His father-in-law gave him the position he's failing at miserably with deadly consequences, and we will remember his casual racism. Jared Kushner is the face of, quote, white privilege and nepotism, unquote. He doesn't want to change our racist broken system because he benefits from it. He's the last person that should be lecturing the black community on the value of hard work, said Barbara Lee, Democrat, California. Just where do we start with that lot? And why is Kushner even involved in our government decisions, policies, or speaking on behalf of? Two things Kushner neglects with his babble is, it was his own Judeo-fascist elements that had done the most damage to the black race, not whites. Although history says the black people have not exactly helped their own either. But they're not unique in that, are they? Because it applies to all colours. We haven't looked after each other. That's a fact. But Israel Cohen stated they would use the blacks to bring down the whites in 1912, and this is the current program using the media and BLM to create more guilt and shame on the whites, when BLM is funded by the Judeo-fascist group, the Soros Foundation. And as for Barbara Lee's statement of white privilege rhetoric, she's the Milgram experiment gone wrong woman. And this is an attempt at blatant racism against the white people. Jews are not whites, period. And this is being repeated often now. And it begins to stick in the psyche of the great unthinking populace, and it needs to stop and be called out. Kushner, white privilege, my arse. There are many dangerous and fairly scary things going on globally, but this story raises many concerns on so many levels. The Israeli Secret Service organization, Mossad, has obtained China's COVID-19 vaccine, taking the medicine for, quote, study, unquote. Now, Israel, we are told, has already developed a vaccine of its own, which is undergoing human trials. And Mossad brought the vaccine to Israel in recent weeks, according to the Israel Channel 12 reported this week. But it was not immediately clear how exactly the agency obtained the alleged medicine. And multiple government sources have indirectly confirmed to the report to local media the goal of procurement is said to be study of the Chinese compound and further exploring vaccination options. And apart from that, a health ministry official confirmed that the country is seeking to purchase COVID-19 vaccines from all other countries. So Israel is going to buy all the vaccines up. There are several diplomatic efforts going on behind the scenes, according to the Jerusalem Post. We are trying everything we can to ensure Israeli citizens have access to a vaccine as soon as possible. Now, like they said earlier, Israel has developed a COVID-19 vaccine of its own, allegedly, and yet its testing process remains at an early stage. And last week, the Israel Institute for Biological Research in Nes Ziona announced the name of its vaccine, which has been dubbed Bri Life, which means Health Israel Life. Make of that what you will. Now, the vaccine has already received all the necessary approvals, 10 years ahead of schedule, just might say, and its phase 1 human testing is expected to begin next week. At first, the medicine will be trialled on some 100 volunteers. For volunteers, read Palestinians. And if everything goes well, they said, it won't, but they won't tell you, a further 1,000 people will partake in phase 2 of the trials next spring. Now, in recent weeks, Israel has endured a sharp increase in new coronavirus cases, with the disease tally currently standing at 310,000 mark. While the figure appears to be relatively small compared to the worst affected countries, it is rather sizable for the 8.9 million nation and continues and constitutes some 3.4% of the whole population. And those figures were brought to you by the math-deficient CDC, World Health Organization and the Johns Hopkins Center. Common sense questions. Why is an intelligence organization got anything to do with viruses or vaccines? Why did the Chinese send their patented vaccine to another country when they want all the sales for themselves? 3. With Mossad's nasty global reputation and complete disregard for life, and in particular Gentiles, where is the global outrage or concern on this? 4. Given Israel and America are in each other's pockets, particularly via intelligence agencies and government, does this go down as trading with the enemy China? 5. If Israel is collecting all the vaccines, will they be the deciders of which country and which people get the vaccines? And what are the geopolitical and social potentials of misusage of that?